Ladies and gentlemen, you're in the zone. Welcome back. We had our 65th show last week, folks, and I just had to thank all of you. What a rousing response we got to that show. We're growing, we're getting better, and we're evolving as well, and we have you to thank for that. I just wanted to start right off by saying we had a special week last year as far as people watching, people participating and contributing, and we love it. We absolutely love it. You are in the zone with Pete Coles, Rich Sutter, 66th show. Now, we just came off our 65th, and when we said 65th, everybody when we put it up online, everybody thought it was my birthday, which was, I guess, a slap in the head, I guess. But I'm not far from there, but I'm not there yet. All right, so let's get started, Pete. We're going to go right into NCAA Feed 'em Fish segment. And we love this segment because we're going to just jump right into college basketball, which is what we love to do here. We do college basketball, we do pro basketball, but basically we just do basketball. And there's a ton of fans out there that are 365 days a year looking for really good basketball content, and we think we're bringing it to you. So we're going to start off our section today, the segment today, with even a blind squirrel will find some nuts. Okay? And we're referencing our good friends down at the NCAA. We've been critical, Pete. Let's just face it. We've been critical of the NCAA.
Much deserved.
And much deserved. Pete and I have gone back and forth and shake our heads, scratch our heads, stick our heads someplace where the sun doesn't shine. We have no idea what's going on half the time here, but we're trying to make sense of it for you. But when we do criticize, we also like to temper that. We also like to present as much balance to the equation as we possibly can. The NCAA got one right, in my opinion. Some people might differ about this. There is a little bit of a concern with possibly basketball overload, but the NCAA went ahead and in conjunction with the Final Four, which is the big flagship event of the NCAA basketball season, they've gone ahead now and made the NIT final, the Division II, and the Division III final all simultaneous at the Final Four. That's going to be really cool. They've moved all of the championship rounds into this umbrella, into this bracket, and I like it. I think it's going to be very good. And like we have been critical. Been really critical of the NCAA. But I think they got this one right, Pete. I think they got this one right. Even a blind squirrel will find some nuts. So we're going to move on here in the zone. We got a little bit of they're going to learn today, Pete. They're going to learn today. All right? We're going to give it to them straight down the gizzard today, baby, because we have been on a roll since our draft. We just thought our draft was really well put together. A lot of time, a lot of effort over the entire course of the year goes into us putting that draft together. But the Vegas boys have proven us out, Pete. The Vegas boys are behind in the zone. There is nowhere in the country on a media site, on a news site, on a podcast, on any form of social media anywhere, did you hear anybody say, take Zach Edey with the number one pick. Take the 7'5" center out of Purdue with the number one pick. The only place you heard that mentioned was right here in the zone. The Vegas boys are now in complete alignment within the zone, and they have now moving Zach Edey, the number 9 choice by the Memphis Grizzlies, up to number 1 in the Rookie of the Year selections. So the odds from the people who are going to lose money if they're not right have moved to Zach Edey as the number 1. Pete, we gave him out as our number 1 pick, and I was excited about that because I do support our NCAA players. I do support our American players. I really do. And when we had a Victor Wembanyama and we had one of those anomalies that were an international great superstar player, remember, Jokic was 42. Jokic was drafted at 42. We have now emerged Victor Wembanyama. I had no issue with that. But now we had a bunch of international players that came up on the scene, largely unproven, and certainly not with the physical or basketball skill set of a Victor Wembanyama. So is the
Who's
NBA...
your pick? Did the Hawks lose out?
They did. They absolutely did. I saw Researcher the other night, and again, we're going to talk about the number 2 pick, which was Alex Sarr by the Washington Wizards, and that might be the type of pick that can get some people fired, because the young man went 0 for 15 in Summer League the other night. Not only 0 for 15, but 0 for 7 from three-point range. And I've got news for all of these guys that are in the Summer League right now. I'm going to give you a bit of coaching advice, free coaching advice. Move in. Move in. You're shooting from too far away. There's way too many air balls going up in that Summer League right now. Move in. You're not capable of shooting the ball from three-point range. Move in where you can be successful. Move into a place where you'll have a high field goal percentage. Right now, you're watching some of these players and they're going, 5 for 17, 0 for 15. You're 7 foot and you took 7 threes out of the 15 shots. At what point did you think, maybe I got to get inside and get a bucket? Maybe I better hang around the basket and get a dunk here. We just kept jacking and jacking and jacking. It's fool's gold almost. It's equivalent of fool's gold. But we're going to talk about that. Edey is also playing, Zach Edey also playing for the Canadian USA team as well. Okay, so a little bit of Summer League, a little bit of that for him. Again, we are the only people in media who said that. We're the only ones who did it. Everybody else had them 15, 17. I mean, we're not talking about like people had them 2, Pete. We're not talking about like people had them 3. Nobody that I saw on any of those mock drafts had him anywhere in the top 10. The Grizzlies were smart to grab him at 9, but you're going to see 8 of those teams that are pre-drafted before picking. Zach Edey was picked by Memphis Grizzlies, and every single one of them is going to be rough to bear. Alex Sarr in the number 2 spot, that might be tough for the Wizards to go with because they actually needed some help. That's one of the problems when you draft and you draft poorly is because one of the reasons you're receiving a very high draft pick is because you're losing and you need help. And when you go and grab people that aren't going to help, you only continue the losing. I know I'm explaining stuff that's very simple right now to our crew, but, people get that. People understand that, I think. And so I was happy with that. There's a couple of other things that we just noticed that I think, what I did was I went back over the week and I took the NBA draft, the actual NBA draft, and then I held it up to ours, Pete. And I was really, really surprised at some of the differences that were there. And I wanted to make note of some of those anomalies right now so that we could expound and expand upon where those differences actually were and why those differences were there. The Memphis Grizzlies drafted Zach Edey at number 9. We had him at number 1. But very, very large group of prognosticators had him much, much later than that, which would have been even more embarrassing because that would have been a number of other players drafted before. And again, I went back to this, Pete, and I don't want to, by any means, get on the wrong side of Husky Nation right now, but people had Donovan Clingan being drafted above Zach Edey. And I don't know if they watched the final. I don't know that they saw that same game that I watched. And so I cannot for the life of me figure it out. What is the draw or the drag on this young man? Because by all accounts, from his time at Purdue, he was a fantastic, fantastic representative and ambassador of the NCAA. So there's none of that off-the-court stuff. There's none of this other crazy stuff revolving around this guy, and yet people didn't go the way that we went. And I'm just excited about that. Here's another one for you, Pete. Keshad Johnson. We had him at number 10. He went undrafted. He just had 2 of the best summer league games of anybody that came out, and he's going to be a very, very solid pro by all accounts. We had Keshad Johnson from Arizona on our board at number 10. He went undrafted. They're going to learn today, Pete. They're going to learn today. And Fali Dante, we were very, very high on this young man. We had him in the first round. We had him at 23. Thank you, Pete. And we had him at 23 and goes undrafted. Really solid in the summer league. You're not going to get everything out of this young man, but you're going to get some solid rebounding, good shot blocking, and he moves extremely, extremely well for a big man. And again, they're going to learn today, Pete. We had him at 23, goes undrafted. There's a whole bunch of other players on that draft board, first round and second round, that are not going to make NBA teams, And my guess is Anfale Dante is going to be okay. Stephon Castle. Everybody was very, very excited about Stephon Castle. And again, Pete, I don't want to get on the other side of Husky Nation because I like Husky Nation. I love what they're doing right now. I love what they've done in the past. I got no issue with that. But Stephon Castle at 4 was a mistake. We had him at 26. Stephon Castle at 4 is going to prove out to be a mistake. We had him at 26. Willing to stand on that. Terrence Shannon from Illinois, we love this young man. He is blowing the summer league up with his athleticism, his aggressiveness attacking the basket, and he's got a pretty good-looking jump shot, too. Going to be a very, very solid pro. I don't know why there was a knock on him. I assume that it might have been related to some of the off-court distractions that were in the path of this young man this year, but we had him at 16. He went 27th. You're going to learn today, Pete. They're going to learn today. Tristan Da Silva out of Colorado. We were very excited about this young man, very high on this young man. He's having a very, very good summer league. He's going to be a good pro. And again, there was a little bit of disparity on that one. 18 was taken in the draft. We had him at 14. We thought a good bit of this young man. Baylor Shearman, and we have a term on this show that we use when we want to address something. We call it GTA, which is Grand Theft Auto. We think Baylor Shearman's going to turn into a GTA for the Celtics. And I want to give Celtics fans something else, that not only are the Celtics loaded right now, but they have a couple of other very good players that are in their perimeter that they're keeping that haven't really eclipsed the lineup yet, but Neemias Queta is a second-year player that the Celtics have on their roster. Keep an eye on that name, folks. Neemias Queta. He's been terrific in the Summer League. I do want to break for 1 second before I go through the rest of the names I have here, while the point is fresh in my brain. I also want to say, Pete, I got to say this. The NBA needs to clear out some of these second-year guys, okay? Some of the second-year guys that have been in the league already, the NBA needs to clear them out. All right? And the reason they need to clear them out is we need to get a better look at the younger players.
Yep.
Now, if you haven't made an NBA roster, or you're 32 years old and it's been your dream to go to the NBA, I think you should be invited to summer camp. No problem. But if you're an existing player with an NBA contract right now, I don't think you should be at summer camp just to bolster out your lineup and hopefully get a better review down in summer camp. I don't think that's cool. I think the NBA has far too many experienced players in that, and it shows. You know, the better players down there, you know, Julian Strawther, some of the players that were drafted last year that we were high on, you know, and are doing very, very good things. But those are the guys dominating the summer league, and I guess it makes maybe a little bit better basketball. But I'm much more interested in watching the future. I'm much more interested in watching the aspiration. I'm much more interested in seeing who's going to break out, who's going to be that guy. And I think there's some there. I think Baylor Shearman's Grand Theft Auto. I really do. I think Filipowski at 32. We had him at 8. And I'm willing to split that difference. You want to say he was 20, I'm okay. But there's no way that this young man should have slipped to 32 and be taken by the Utah Jazz.
That's
something there. That's Grand Theft Auto, Pete. And I think that might be, there was some other, as we said last week on the show, there was some kind of real stuff going on around this young man. And I don't know the whole story of it, so I'm not going to get fully in depth with it, but it certainly, to me, impacted his draft position. Based upon his college career, his time at Duke, his skill set, and being 7 foot, being able to run, handle, he's tough, he's not shy around the basket. I really thought something was going on with that. I think at 32, a really good pick. Tristan Newton from Connecticut. I love Stephon Castle, but I thought Tristan Newton was the glue to this team this year and really had a really good run of it. We had him in the first round. We had him, somewhere in the 28 pick, I believe, and he wound up going 49th. I just didn't see that. Oso Ighodaro Another pick, we had him in the first round. We had him at 15. He wound up going 40. Take mention of that, folks. I think he's going to be pretty good. Here's one I'm really sure that they messed up on. Adem Bona. He was at UCLA. People were different knocks on him and different, reads on him, and he wound up slipping to the 40 spot. We had him at 12, and he is absolutely dominating the Summer League right now. He's blocking 4 and 5 shots a game, and he absolutely is dominating the Summer League. We had Deron Holmes in the second round at 37. They took him at 22. That really doesn't have any doesn't have a lot of bearing on what happened with the young man. Unfortunately, Deron Holmes has tore his Achilles and will be out for extended period of time. A-10 All-Star, A-10 great player. We're sorry to hear that. The last one I'm going to leave you with from the Summer League, Pete, Trey Alexander from Creighton, a big guard, 6'5", going to be a good NBA player, undrafted. We had him at 42. You could have got a really good player at 42. Okay. In the NCAA, there was a nice little thing posted up on Twitter. I wound up stealing it, and it was just an interesting thing, and there was a lot of teams listed on this thing. And a lot of times they only list the teams by their logo. And so they don't actually list the team's name. So if I don't know the logo, it's hard for me to even figure out sometimes who that team is. Right. But for the most of them, I did okay. There was a couple of things that this is the last time they finished in last place. And I thought it was really, really interesting. University of Kentucky, the Wildcats. Pete, they've never finished in last place.
In their league?
In their league. Not one time. Wow. That's amazing.
That is amazing, yeah.
NC State, I'm pretty sure it was them on that logo. They were never.
I believe that.
Yep.
I believe that.
Now, two teams, West Virginia and Oklahoma State, the last time that they finished last was 2024. Last year. They were last year. So those are two great programs as well. I think what that reflects is the way that the basketball world is turned upside down. Schools that used to be really good, I'm going to name a couple of them for you. They got their globe turned upside down. Their snow globe's going upside down a little bit. NC State had made a great run this year, but up until that moment, they had a great past, and they were struggling in this moment. Syracuse has had an unbelievable past, and they are struggling in this moment. St. John's had a great historical past, struggling in this moment. Georgetown, an unbelievable basketball history, they're struggling in this moment. DePaul University, they've fallen, and they can't get up. They had an unbelievable history going way, way back with Mark Aguirre and just an unbelievable Chicago connection there when the basketball was really hot in Chicago. They've fallen. They can't get up. And so some of these teams, as you watch, I was really, really surprised at a couple of these dates as well. So let's just go through a few more. Duke, 1995. It's 29 years ago. That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
North Carolina, and I would say that Duke team that was in 95 might have been, I want somebody to go and do a research for me. All the people that watch our show, come back and tell me if I'm right about this, but I might say on that 1995 Duke team, that might have been the year that Coach Krzyzewski was out due to back problems. I would love for some of our folks to get me some research and some intel on that one. But I think that was the year that Coach K, in the middle of the year, had a back issue and couldn't continue on. I believe that might have been that year. North Carolina, I was shocked by this. 2020. So last time they finished last. Villanova, 93. Arizona, 1983. That's a good long run. UConn, 1988. The Huskies are rolling. And Michigan State, here was one, Pete, I thought you would find interesting. 1965, the last time the Spartans were found in the cellar.
Okay, Coach K was 19. He ruptured his disc in his back in October 1994.
So that's not the year.
Insisted on returning to the sidelines in the 94-95 season.
Okay, I stand corrected. Thank you, Pete. So it wasn't that year. So it must have been a Coach Krzyzewski coach team that finished in last place, and that's surprising to me. I didn't know that ever happened. All right, we got a guy named John Rothstein. I used to know John Rothstein's father. His father was a coach, I believe Pistons. Might have been a Pistons coach. He hung around with a bunch of guys back in New York that I knew, and his son now is a social media basketball analyst and just lives hoops. He does a good job. I'm going to give you his preseason projections, and I want to go out on a limb right now and say a preseason projection is like getting somebody's phone number. You're still a long way from the altar. You're still a long way from getting it done. Okay? I just want to say that. All right? But these people do a good amount of research. They do a good amount of homework. And as we said before, this could change tomorrow with some portal action, with some new signings, with all of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes right now in college basketball. It can absolutely change, as they say, in a New York minute. All right, so we're going to go to Rothstein now. He's got the Huskies riding high. He's going to say the UConn Huskies are going to go back and get it again. And like I've said before many times on this show, who's betting against them right now? Who's going to bet against the UConn Huskies? I would not. Okay, I would think that that's a pretty good assessment as far as the league goes. Would you bet against them, Pete?
No, because they've shown that they can, with different groups of players, keep the same Husky mentality. It's almost like the Patriots did for years and years and years. There's different bit players. They had their solid leader is the coach, and everybody can. All the other parts are interchangeable. They all buy into the same. They're all rowing the same way.
Does Hurley coming back christen him in a different sort of way, Pete?
Oh, absolutely, because he appears to be the glue that holds those guys together, and they all completely they're willing to fight like to unbelievable levels to keep the program and him going. That's why UConn paid so much money to keep him there.
I'm sure there was some trepidation also. You know, is he going to leave? Mm-hmm. You know, are you going to turn down $14 million from Kentucky? I think we're seeing that on the college ranks with coaching a little bit, but also now you've seen some of that hit the NBA.
Here's the thing. You saw how loyal they were to him in the portal.
They were.
In the portal.
They were. We mentioned that.
Or lack of the portal.
Yeah.
Kids going to the portal from UConn.
There was only 2 teams in the entire country that didn't have somebody in the portal, and UConn was one of them.
Correct.
Yeah. We mentioned that on the show, and I think you're 100% right on that, Pete. They've done something there where they're incurring loyalty and they're incurring, a way of kind of keeping their community intact.
Yeah.
And not having, all of these different things go on in their program that are happening just seemingly almost everywhere else. When you have Duke having transfers, North Carolina having transfers, those are things that haven't occurred much in the past. And hats off to Coach Hurley, man.
I wouldn't be surprised you see Bill Belichick popping in the back door every once in a while, giving him pointer tips.
And Bill Belichick
on how to set culture.
Bill Belichick's got a 24-year-old girlfriend right now, Pete. He's not he's not popping in any doors anytime soon, except hers, I would say, because 24 years old, Pete.
Could be busy.
He's busy. I would say he's got a fairly tight social schedule right now for Coach.
Think about the culture, though, that he set there, and this is what Hurley's doing at UConn.
I'm with you 100% on that. I just couldn't pass up the girlfriend thing.
I know. Easy pop.
Number 2, Marquette. He likes Marquette. I don't know how. You lost Tyler Kolak. You lost Oso Ighodaro. They do have some good pieces back. One of the best players in the whole league, but 2 is high, I think. I think they're floating a little high there. Xavier hasn't shown anything in the last couple of years since Coach Miller has arrived back there following his skirmish at Arizona. I see what they're talking about here, but I just don't see them being this high. But we talked about this last year in the entirety of the NCAA, where sometimes you're going to get high just because everybody else is low. And so right now, these teams are elevated into UConn's elevated into a place where nobody can touch them right now. Not anybody in their league, certainly. Maybe nationally they could get challenged, by Kansas or some of the other good teams out there, Arkansas maybe. But right now they've got it going on. Xavier at 3, I think, is too high. Creighton, I see it, but I just don't know how. I know Coach is a great coach. They'll have a good squad. They'll put it all together. But you also lost your guy, Trey Alexander. You've lost some really, really good pieces there. Kalkbrenner, he's got a big future, but I don't know, how they sustain it with the amount of losses that they've had. I think the NIL, the portal, has alleviated some of those concerns for coaches, but you still got to find them. You still got to get it done, and they still got to be the right guys. That's the tough part.
Yep.
St. John's at 5, I'm going to say this is way too high. All right. I don't know what Coach Pitino has done, and I love St. John's. I'm a New Yorker, grew up rooting for Louis Carnesecca's group, even had some of our own players, Robert Wardan, attend St. John's. Believe me, I love St. John's, but I don't know where this elevation is coming from unless it's just from everybody else falling on the wayside. I think Joel Soriano going to the pros after a number of good years there is going to impact them, especially inside, 7-footer with shot blocking capabilities. I think you're going to miss some of that. I don't think that they have any signings of note, except from the young man that came across from Seton Hall, Kadari Richmond. That's about it. And I think, Seton Hall was an NIT team last year, won the NIT. Kadari Richmond's a great player, but I don't know how you all of a sudden say that elevates St. John's up, when they got one or two guys that all of a sudden, when everybody else is getting guys too. Everybody else is having them. But the Big East, I don't know. We'll see. I think 5's way too high. Providence, I thought this team might be a little bit higher. 6 Providence. They lost Devin Carter, but I think they're going to remain intact in a lot of the other places that they need to. And I think they're going to be pretty solid all the way around. I might elevate the Friars just a little bit. Good story here. Tad Matta was the Ohio State coach, left Ohio State, took a little bit of time off. He's a seasoned, experienced coach. Butler isn't a great job, I don't think. When Brad Stevens had it, it was a pretty good job. But historically, for overtime, it's not been one of the great jobs. But I think he's doing okay there. To be 7, I think is pretty good for them. Villanova in the 8th spot. Villanova right here, they went and they hired Kyle Lowry a number of years back, and I think they're going to have some issues. I think they're running into some issues here, and right now I think that they're going to struggle to gain their momentum back to the Villanova that they once were. I think at 8, that's pretty accurate. When you look at 9, 10, and 11, 9, 10, and 11, I would think DePaul might be able to move a little bit quicker than that with 11. They have a totally new roster. When I say totally new, I mean totally new. There is nobody on that roster from last year. Brand new coach, brand new roster. So keep an eye on DePaul. They might elevate a little quicker than you think. Coach Cooley left Providence and now went to Georgetown. Georgetown, very late start on the NIL, a little bit late on the portal as well, and they're really struggling to a level that Georgetown has not seen in many, many years. And Seton Hall is in the 9 spot there. They lost again. Pretty good player, and I think they're going to have some issues with that. But it's a tough job. Shaw Holloway's done great things out there, though. He's a good coach, and he'll keep them fired up. All right, Pete, that's your Big East. John Rothstein. Thanks, Coach. We're out and we're moving. All right, Hoosier hysteria. Hoosier high school hysteria. Found this one. I just laughed so hard when I saw this, and it's absolutely 100% true. And I wanted just to give everybody else a little summertime chuckle here, folks. All right. There are 35, some human being, maybe with the help of some computer and some AI, went out and found out that there are 35 high school gymnasiums in the country that are the largest, the biggest high school gyms in all of the country. 27 of them are in one state alone. 27 out of 35 largest high school gyms in the entire country are in one state alone. What's the state, Pete?
Texas.
Texas. Great, unbelievable guess, but we're going to have to say no.
Really?
It's an easy one for people that kind of know the scenario, because if you've ever been to this state and you've watched the way that basketball is treated in this state, you would identify with it a little quicker. Indiana, Bobby Knight, the state that Bobby
Hoosier
Knight built basketball. Hoosier basketball. 27 of 35 in that state.
Wow.
And I would venture to say that if you looked at some of the coaching salaries in that state as well, probably are 35, highest salaries, you're probably going to wind up with at least a good 25 to 27 of them being in the state of Indiana. They absolutely revere their basketball coaches out there. They love their basketball in that state. And Pete, I thought Texas was a pretty good guess. All right.
Yeah, maybe if he had said football, I would have won for Texas.
Oh, you would have definitely won that one. You definitely would have won that one. Friday Night Lights is the real high school out there.
Yep.
60,000 seat arenas out there.
That's
and
crazy.
$60 million to build them. All right, so Kentucky Summer League. This Summer League is the Kentucky Summer League. I wanted to note that all of these gentlemen we're about to mention have 0 NCAA titles between them. But all of these young men that are in the Summer League right now were at Kentucky as well. I'm going to read them off to you, and you're going to see. The Warriors have Kevin Knox. He's been in there a couple of years now. The Rockets drafted Reed Sheppard at number 3. Way too high, Rockets. Okay. The Pacers have Oscar Tshiebwe, one of the former players of the year on the Pacers right now, having a good summer league too. The Bucks have Chris Livingston and Ty Washington. The Wolves have Rob Dillingham, and he's doing pretty good. The Pelicans have Antonio Reeves. The Knicks have Jacob Toppin. The Thunder have local product Trey Mitchell, started out at UMass, son of Tony Bergeron, local coach and assistant coach at UMass as well. And the Sixers have Justin Edwards. Those are 10 players that they have in the Summer League that are all from Kentucky. Again, I would remind everybody, 0 titles. 0 titles. All right, so we're going to run through with a little bit of NBA. We're going to run through some of the Summer League stuff that we've been seeing. Who do we like? Who do we don't like? And we're going to give you a little bit of that. We went back through the draft and told you a little bit of the draft in conjunction with the Summer League. But now we're just going to talk straight performance in the Summer League. And we're going to go with our Grand Theft Auto, Baylor Shearman off the get, who's the number 30 pick by the Celtics. We absolutely love this young man at 30. We are going to tell you a couple of things about him. He's going to shoot 80% from the free throw line.
Wow.
You're going to get him in games. There's going to be close games. You're going to have him. He's going to make every single free throw. To me, to my knowledge, I had him as the best, absolute best, and not even close, the best shooter in the entire draft. And he has good athleticism. He's 6'9", handles the ball, and does really good stuff. Grand Theft Auto Celtics, more congratulations to Brad Stevens, general manager, the coaching staff, Coach Mazzulla, everybody. That's good stuff, man, because getting this guy at 30, I had him, I don't even remember where we had him, but I think it was probably in the 17, 18 range, very high on this young man. Reed Sheppard's been solid. I'm not gonna knock him, but at number 3, he was way too high. When he gets to the NBA, he's going to see a whole different level of physicality. I thought Tyler Kolek from the Knicks the other night played as well as Reed Sheppard has, and I'm going to kind of nail it down for you with Sheppard. I think his decision-making process is a little bit flawed. He makes some tough decisions out there, and I'm watching him as a basketball coach, as a basketball player, as a former point guard, and I'm seeing him make some unbelievable, incredible passes, and then there's a good percentage of them. His turnover numbers are way too high right now. A good percentage of them that I'm looking and going, what in the world was he thinking? And as a coach, as a guy who watches the game and lives the game a little bit, that's the one thing I don't want to ask myself. What in the world was he thinking? I'd like to be able to say, I know what he was thinking. I saw how he was trying to get it done, but it just didn't work that way.
Couldn't
for him
execute, right?
Because he had the right read, it just didn't execute. Or somebody on the other end that he was reliant on didn't execute their part as well. There can always be that piece as well. But here I'm watching some of the reads and I'm saying, I don't know. Alex Sarr, number 2 pick overall. That's the kind of pick that can get you fired. I'm going to reserve judgment. I'm going to hold out a little bit. But we had Zach Edey over this young man, and this young man averaged under 10 points in the international league that he was playing at. He's 0 for 15 the other night, 0 for 7 from three-point range. He's averaging 6.7 and almost 7 rebounds as well in the summer league. But at the number 2 pick, I don't know. I mentioned this young man before. Celtics fans get excited. He's 6'10". He can block shots. He can change shots, and he gets around the basket. And with the guard play the Celtics have, he will absolutely, at some point, he's going to become a real, real good factor on this team. You might see it more when Horford would maybe get into a retirement situation. You'll see this young man go. But Neemias Queta, I brought him up before. He had 20 points, 9 rebounds. 6 of them were offensive rebounds, and he also had 2 assists. Don't pass the ball bad for a big guy, and I like that. So the Celtics, as much as they have a loaded, stacked roster right now, get excited because Baylor Shearman and Neemias Queta are coming up, and they're going to be solid. Julian Strother is another guy we talked about, second year. He's having a really good summer league. He's becoming the player that we thought he could become. Again, we talked about training with him. Cam Whitmore, another second-year player. He's back in the summer league doing great things. He was MVP of the summer league last year for the Houston Rockets. Had a decent year for the Rockets this year, but the Rockets are just so far off, in what they're doing right now, that it's going to take a while. It's going to take a long, long shot. Okay, Kashad Johnson, one undrafted. He is really, really playing well down in the summer league. They're going to be sorry that they didn't draft him. 6'10", skilled. I get what you're saying about him, but he can do some good stuff out there, and certainly should have been taken somewhere in the draft. We had him way, way up there. Bobby Klintman from Sweden. I didn't know much about this young man prior to the draft. It wasn't easy to get a whole lot of film and stuff like that on him, but I watched him the other night. He's going to be pretty solid. I think he could be one of the steals at the draft right now. The only issue that I see for Mr. Klintman is that he belongs to the Detroit Pistons organization. Jamie Jaquez back in the summer league again. This is a second-year guy, and I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why the league's allowing these guys. Jamie Jaquez was maybe like 3rd or 4th in Rookie of the Year voting last year. Why does he need the summer league? I really don't know. He had a monster game, though. 29 points, 11 rebounds, 5 assists. We had him last year in the zone. He's one of the guys we told you. And it's your money. It's your money, NBA folks. You want to do it with it as you please. But when we give you somebody and we tell you we think they're pretty good, we told you Jamie Jaquez last year, really, really solid pro he's turned into. And he's one of those things that the Heat, this is what they're doing. Like when you have picks in the mid-range because you've been fairly successful, and then you grab a Jamie Jaquez at like 18, and then follow up with Kel'el Ware or somebody else we are really excited about. Somebody's doing their right stuff in Miami. Maybe it's the sunshine. Maybe it's the warm weather that makes a better, clearer thinking process. But whatever's going on, it's Pat Riley. And it's, they're organizationally driven, and I like what they're doing, and I certainly like their draft picks this year and the guys that they're picking up on the side. Hakeem Daddier, the Knicks pickup, very mixed bag. Again, I was excited about this European class, Matas Buzelas, and this young man. He's certainly skilled, certainly going to do it, but from the body perspective, they're going to get to the NBA, and they're going to have a physicality issue big time. Matas Buzelas had 15 and 7 the other night, though. He's very skilled. I watched him play one-on-one with Cooper Flagg the other night, and there's a little bit something about his jump shot that I don't 100% like, but he can put it in the basket. He is really long and can dunk and can do some stuff. But absolutely got to get stronger. I don't understand this one, Pete. This is another little bit of a head-scratcher for me. Adamo Sanogo is in the Summer League again, and he's playing great. I don't know how he couldn't have found an NBA roster this year. I just don't get it. But maybe the NBA has become so profiled and so specific about what they're doing that, a player like a Dembona and Oso Ighodaro doesn't necessarily fit that mold, but they're going to be good players in the league, no question about it. I don't know what's going on at the analytical level right now where they're looking at this and they're turning away a Zach Edey and they're turning away some of the players who've gone through the NCAA and proven themselves in those big, tough, proving games in the NCAA. And so I favor that. I like that because, we get to watch them quite a bit and see, what they're doing, but also, to support them as well because they've played in the American system. And I think that that's a little bit underrated right now. We've forced these gentlemen to not only play a European style of basketball, but now we're also flooding the zone with a bunch of players that I would say if they weren't international, they wouldn't be in the league, some of them.
Yep.
Our players would have gotten drafted ahead of them, but they are international, and the NBA is trying to grow their brand. I get that, but let's be fair about it too, okay? Sanogo, somebody got to pick him up. I'd love for the Knicks to pick him up. Just be a great team guy. All right? Adem Bona, 8 points, 7 rebounds, 5 blocks the other night. He's never going to light the world on fire, but you better figure out that they got Joel Embiid to light the world on fire, and he's going to be right next to him, rebounding, blocking shots, playing good defense. I really like this pick for the Sixers. To get it in the second round, to get it done in the second round, for me, that was just egregious. That was malpractice by a lot of teams that drafted before that, where we had them probably in the 10, 12 range, and we stand by that. I'll split the difference with you a little bit, but he certainly should have been a top 20 pick, and they blew it. Terrence Shannon, 19 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 blocks. He dominated the floor the other night. We had him much earlier than they did. Tristan Da Silva from the Magic, 23 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. When In the Zone gives it to you, you're going to learn today. Anthony Black from the Magic, second year, back in there, was number 8 pick last year for the Magic, and we told you to avoid Anthony Black. Didn't listen. Drafted 8th, way, way too high. We had him somewhere in our second round. He had an efficiency rating number -7 the other night in a summer league game. All right? Going to be a tough road, though. I think he had a decent year this year in the NBA, but it's going to be rough. Zachary Resasher, the number 1 overall. This is going to be a trivia question because there's people in this draft that have been talked a whole lot more about besides Zachary Resasher, who's a number 1 overall. Saw him play the other night. He's 6'10". He can shoot the ball pretty good from outside, and he's got a really good skill set as far as doing some things. I still don't back down to Zach Edey at number 1, but I think Resatcher has a chance because he can shoot the ball a little bit. But again, 4 for 12 the other night, 1 for 7 from three-point range.
Ouch.
I just didn't get it. And Zach Edey, we had him at number 1. Bronny, we're mixed bag about Bronny. Had a very good game last night, finally broke out and played like I thought he could play. I think he has a chance to be a decent backup guard or a third guard on this team, but I just don't see it right now. Trey Alexander from Creighton went undrafted and had way better results in the summer league so far. We mentioned DaRon Holmes with the Achilles. Very, very difficult injury to overcome. All right, so NBA In the Zone. We are ready now to give you our top 10 NBA basketball coaches currently. These are the gentlemen that are still dancing on the sidelines. These are the young men that are still found passion and excitement for the game, and they're going out there and really, really in a very tough environment. Think about 41 airports. Think about 41 flights. Think about 41 different hotels, 41 bus trips. All of those things go on to the lifestyle of NBA. Think about now they're
hurting all of those cats.
Yeah, well, that too. But their per diem and all that other stuff is nice. They can go out on the road, but you're still eating out on the road all the different times. It's difficult. Anybody who spent significant amount of time out on the road away from home knows that it's difficult to hold your schedule together. Know that it's difficult to hold your routine together. I can't imagine with 19-year-old young men, now they're millionaires, I get it, but 41 times they got to go, they got to be ready, and that's why you see very few rookies come through it as well as many do. But here we go, Pete. Number 1, Eric Spoelstra from the Miami Heat. Didn't have the type of year this year we were looking for, but doesn't have that type of team either. Doesn't have that type of roster. I think he's kind of elevated himself, in my mind, as to one of the really, really good, solid coaches. Game preparation, individual talent improvement. Those things are really going on in Miami. I think with the great Pat Riley looking over his shoulder as well, there's some really good mentorship going on there. And Spoelstra, when he started out, a lot of people, a lot like I want to go back and now take people back to the same things are being said about Joe Mazzulla right now that were being said about Eric Spoelstra. And today, Mazzulla is the NBA champion, and right now we're talking about Eric Spoelstra being the number one guy. So what I would say to general managers, I would say to also NCAA athletic directors, sometimes patience is a virtue, and sometimes if you give it enough time, it'll turn right. But we're in a market right now where things are going off more than a Revolutionary War cannon. Things are getting fired, and boom, people are getting fired, and jobs are changing, and there's no way under all that attrition that you can keep this thing rolling like you should. Okay, so we go at our guy, Coach Malone, from the Denver Nuggets in the second spot, Mike Malone. I might be honest and say that's a Bronx CHSAA little shot there because I loved his dad, thought he was good people, and I think Coach Malone's done a great job with the Nuggets. We'll see what happens with them coming into next year because they started off this year with a rash of injuries. And as any coach will tell you, that's really hard. When you got to go into your bag and grab your 8, 9, and 10 guys and try and succeed with them when you just lost your 2, 3, and 4 guy. It's not the same thing, and that's why they are your 2, 3, and 4 guy, not your 8, 9, and 10 guy. And so Coach Malone had a little bit of that going into this year. I'll be excited to see what happens with them out in the very difficult Western Conference. I'll be excited to see what happens with them if they can stay injury-free. But a lot of times what you'll see also is you're getting those injuries with the teams that played latest. They had the most games. They were in the finals. They went all the way to the end. They won the championship, so they had the most games with the Miami Heat. No surprise that Jamal Murray and Butler got hurt the very following year because they stretched out and had the most games. I think there's a correlation there, and I think the NBA should be a little bit aware of that with the amount of games they have scheduled. Number 3, Greg Popovich. Right now the Spurs are flat on their back. They've fallen and they can't get up, but I'm old enough to remember Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Parker. What a great unit they had there for a long, long time, and nobody would question that. Pop, on a given day, he's going to, if he has a right lineup, he's going to be okay, and he's going to get it done. Number 4, Steve Kerr, currently coaching the USA team, the Golden State Warriors coach for many, many years. There's a young man who stepped into this business without any experience at all and really has elevated and done well, considered one of the better coaches in the game. And he's been with the same team for a long time, which is, you have him and Popovich as the deans almost of the NBA in terms of their longevity, in terms of being able to stay with one team. Look at Doc Rivers' resume, and you'll see a completely different sheet of paper. Rick Carlisle, number 5. I'm really excited about the coach that this guy has become because another guy who came into the league very young, very inexperienced, and he's been in a number of different cities as far as coaching. But last year, the Indiana Pacers averaged over 30 open looks a game for their players. And if you're in the NBA and you're getting your guys open looks, you're doing pretty good. Thibodeau, Mazkak, Coach Thibodeau from the Knicks, we have him in 6, doing a good job, really building his culture, really building that franchise back to respectability. Loved the Knicks when I was a kid, and I love to see what they're doing right now. Udoka, Ime Udoka, I put him in 7. He got jammed up with the Celtics, but they were in a good spot. Could you imagine if that didn't happen and no Joe Mazzulla ever would have occurred? You would have had Ime Udoka now have a championship ring and have a franchise where he's been pointed towards being the best in the absolute world right now. It's terrible, but I like what he's done with the Rockets. I like what he's done with their franchise, their player development. I think he's done a good job, and they were nipping on the Golden State Warriors' heels all year for that last playoff spot. And I don't know that the referees had anything to do with it. I wouldn't go out and say anything like that, but they did shoot an awful lot of free throws in that last little bit getting up there. Okay, Tyronn Lue, never been a big fan of his as a coach. I think he's kind of been a guy that LeBron James brought along and kind of been able to stay there. But he's kind of proven and turned himself in. The Clippers got bounced early this year. I wasn't too excited about that. And now they are absolutely dismantling their team. Russell Westbrook is on the move. They have other guys, that are on the go and moving around. George just signed with the 76ers, so going to be a rough year for them. I have Missoula in the 9 spot. I want to move them up a little bit, but it's only been a short period of time. They do have the championship, but I think Mr. Magoo probably could have won the championship with the Boston Celtics this year. I'm going to go last with Mark Daigneault from the OKC Thunder. And the reason I'm going Coach Daigneault is because he's a Massachusetts product. Grew up in Leominster, went to UConn, mentored by the great Coach Calhoun, and I've known him since a bit. Don't know him personally, but I remember him as a player, as a young man coming up, and exciting to see that he is now taking the OKC Thunder into a new echelon with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and some other great players, Chet Holmgren. They've maybe got the most exciting young team in the league. All right. So we're going to hustle here, Pete, because we're going to run out of time, I think, maybe for the first time ever.
We got about 10 minutes.
We got 10, but I got about 25 worth of stuff right here. We'll see. All right, so Team USA. All right, they've been doing okay. They're undefeated. They have 3 wins. They beat Serbia yesterday. Jokic playing for Serbia. I was excited to see the game, excited to see the matchup. It wasn't the same matchup that I anticipated. Serbia doesn't have the talent level to match. Jokic played very, very well for his team, but the USA team the NBA team really took to the floor in the second half and just absolutely scorched them. They had a little bit more difficulty with Australia and a little bit more difficulty with Canada in the exhibition. But an exhibition of the Australia game in Abu Dhabi, 12,217 fans, the most basketball fans ever to watch a game there. So that was unbelievable. One of the problems Coach Kerr said was that there was a ton of points and a ton of offensive rebounds. I got news for you, Coach. That's kind of in your wheelhouse. All right, exhibition with Serbia went well, though, and the team looks good. They've got 2 more to go. I think they're going to be fine. All right, we're going to give you our NBA Stack 30 right now. This is the group that we put together from ESPN. This is not ours. This is ESPN's Stack 30 of the NBA. They keep the Boston Celtics on the number 1 ledger. No question about that. Overall, number 1 team in the NBA right now is the Boston Celtics. They're poised for number 19, and people in Boston got to be pumped and excited about that. They've got a great young roster. Unbelievable. Oklahoma City Thunder, ESPN pushed them up. We just mentioned Coach Daigneault, and they're moving them up. I got a little bit of a holdback on that. I think you got them way too high. And I think they got some other people here that are low, and that might be just based upon some of the trades that have just occurred. Minnesota Timberwolves, this is too high. This is too high. They had a good year this year, and they've got great young talent on that team, but this is a little bit too high for them. I think you're going to see a little bit of renaissance with some of those older teams. I think you might see the Warriors bounce back a little bit. I think you might see the Knicks. Well, they've got a new Mikal Bridges, a new roster, a new assignment. They're building that Villanova thing. The only thing I would tell you, everybody, is right now you kind of seem to be building a cult there, with the Villanova thing. Slow down. Let's get some other players with some other backgrounds and some other geography so that we have some nice disparity of thought. Right now what you have is Jay Wright's Villanova team doing pretty good, but I think that team won the NCAA title, but I don't pick them to win the NBA title. Dallas Mavericks at 5, Luka, Kyrie, the 1-2 punch. Let's see if they can bolster that lineup, though, because right now they had a good run. They moved way up into the finals, lost to the Celtics, but I want to see them bolster that lineup a little bit because I don't see them. The ESPN has them ahead of the 76ers, and I just don't see it. If Embiid, Maxey, and now George are going to be out there and healthy, added Dembona and a couple of other young pieces that they have, I think the Sixers are really poised to challenge the Celtics for the Eastern Conference Finals, also poised to give the Knicks everything they can handle as the Knicks were trying to become the heir apparent to the Celtics. Denver Nuggets in the number 7 spot. I don't know. I think they're better than that. That's one of the teams I think I would elevate. I wouldn't give OKC the helm right now over the Denver Nuggets. Number 8, the Milwaukee Bucks. They have to rebuild this roster. There was a terrible mistake to get rid of Jrue Holiday. Bring in Damian Lillard, and they just don't seem to have the same focus, same culture, and same direction that they once had. They have one of the best players in the world on their team, but he's also not the offensive skill set that's going to carry a team. Make note of that. Giannis Antetokounmpo is an unbelievable talent, an unbelievable player, but he does not have the offensive skill set to carry that team like they did. They miss Jrue Holiday. They miss him tremendously. And you saw on stage what Jrue Holiday is capable of doing on the defensive end, putting the other team's point guard into a lockdown and doing other great things as far as running the offense and distributing the ball. It was a terrible, terrible trade for the Bucks. I never got it. Number 9, Indiana Pacers. I like it. They're getting all those open looks. They're going to be good. You get open looks for NBA guys, you should win. Cleveland Cavaliers at 10. They maintained their roster. They were able to keep their key pieces, and I think they're poised for a good future. The Magic had a good year this year. They're in the 11th spot by ESPN, but they faded at the end of the year. They were young, and they faded at the end of the year like a cheap suit. And so I'm waiting to see if they come back this year a little stronger, a little bit better. The Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant, they have Booker. They're just struggling right now. Both of those guys are struggling with their game. That whole franchise is struggling. Bringing in Beal and locking all that money into Beal and giving up a really pretty solid big man at that time, where their roster right now is kind of void of that stuff. I think it was a huge, huge mistake. You make trades to get better. Don't make trades to help other teams. You just made a trade that helped other teams and didn't help you at all. I think the Memphis Grizzlies at 13, I'm going to go a little higher with them than they were. They fell like a rock this year. They had some really, really difficult off-the-court things to deal with. John Morant's absence being most notable. He'll be back next year. They'll bring in Zach Edey. They'll have some other good pieces there. I think the Grizzlies in Memphis, I think you can elevate them a little bit, Pete. New Orleans Pelicans. I don't know how you left Zion Williamson off the USA team. I don't know how you did that, but they did, and I don't get it. But I think the Pelicans are a team that could rise, but they're going to have to bolster that roster or get Zion Williamson out of New Orleans because he's too good a player, too good of a marquee person in the NBA right now. You got to get him. And I'm sorry to even say this, but he's got to be in one of the major market areas, one of the major franchise areas to really fully exhibit his talent and get on a team that's capable of winning the championship. Right now, the Pelicans don't have a very good shot at that. Sacramento Kings at 15, they showed this year. They fell this year. They came up and down. They were really solid in the beginning. If they can sustain, I think they'll be okay, maybe even a little higher than 15. Golden State Warriors and the Lakers in the 16 and 17 spot. When have you seen that? When was the last time you saw two great franchises like that completely upside down and on their back? I'm going to go out on a limb, Pete, and say that might be a little bit high for the Lakers. I don't know what they've done which changes anything for them. I thought they were weak up front and needed some help up front and some depth up front to back up and buttress Anthony Davis. I don't think they've done that. So I don't know. 17? I don't know. Los Angeles Clippers, their roster has been decimated. They've been decimated by off-season moves, and I would say 18 is a little bit high right there for them. You got the Miami Heat at 19. I'd move them up a little bit, especially if Butler's healthy. The Rockets at 20. They're going to climb slowly, but watch this franchise. Watch them in a few years. I like their coach, and I like the way they're pointed. A little bit of disappointment maybe with their draft picks, but they're going to get there. Reed Shepherd at 3 is going to prove to be, I think, a little bit of a problem when you could have got other players in that spot. Houston Rockets also had Yao Ming. I thought they were perfect to draft Zach Edey in the number 3 spot and go with another really big center and create an anchor down on the bottom of their offense. They didn't do it. I don't get it. But, hey, it's going to be their season next year when they're looking up at everybody else. San Antonio Spurs at 21. The Hawks at 22. I see the Spurs moving up a little bit, but Wembanyama is not the total answer there. And you're going to need to either, same thing with Zion, you're either going to need to buttress that lineup or you're going to need to get him out of San Antonio, get him into one of the major market areas. Put Wembanyama in L.A. and the league gets crazy. Put Wembanyama in New York and the league goes crazy. All right? Have him down in San Antonio, winning 16 games a year, it's not going to go well. If his first 3 or 4 years are spent like that in the NBA, I don't think he's going to be able to eclipse the greatness that he's actually capable of. All right, Atlanta Hawks at 22. I don't see it. They took Reese Hatcher at number 1. I don't know how that helps anything. Trae Young was supposedly on the going to be looked at to be traded and moved. They have a terrible roster right now. I just don't get it. The Utah Jazz 23. I think the Jazz are better than some of these other teams. Certainly the Hawks, Spurs. I think the Jazz are getting a little bit of a shot there. I think they're a little bit better. Toronto Raptors at 24. This is also like we talked about in the NCAA. This is only you're elevating because everybody else is dead flat on their back, and that's a problem. And if you look at the rest of these teams, I was a little shocked that they had the Chicago Bulls, Billy Donovan's Chicago Bulls, down in the 25 spot. But again, I'm going to ask the Bulls point blank, why did you trade for Josh Giddey and then draft Matas Buzelis? They're the same player. I don't get it. All right, Charlotte Hornets 26, Portland Trailblazers 27, Detroit Pistons 28, Washington Wizards 29, and ouch, this hurts, the Brooklyn Nets at 30. Now, I think that any of those teams from 26 on down to 30 could finish in last place. It could do any of those things, could finish in last place. All right, we're going to close with USA basketball. Canada, 7-10. 92-86. Pretty close game. Canada played well. Canada has a very good roster. We took Australia on 7-15, 96-92. Australia, very tough, very physical team, and they played around the basket quite a bit and really took to the boards on that. And then you had Serbia the other night, 105-79, Steph Curry with 24. Folks, I wish we could stay longer. We're out of time, but this is a summer in the zone, and we're still running out of information. We could have gone for 2 hours today. I appreciate all the looks last week. We absolutely blew it out of the park last week with the amount of views that we've had. We're growing. We thank you for that, and we're going to keep growing. And the one thing I want to say is everybody's heading in. We just had a little bit of scuffle in the political forum. I want to say one thing to everybody as we head into this political season. And we talk about winning and losing all the time on this show. This is the one thing I want to say to everybody in this country. America never loses. America always comes up right. And America is undefeated because we always do the best we can to get it right. And sometimes it takes too long, but we get it right. America's undefeated, people, and no matter what happens in November, we'll remain undefeated. We'll remain the best place in the world. Thanks, Pete. We'll see you next week.